All right. Welcome back. The Hardcore Record, episode 21, with Scott White of Dragbody, Railsplitter, and most recently, Moving Digging Teeth. We talk about bands, records, his art, his tattoo shop, and what it was like growing up in Florida around some of the most iconic grindcore, metal, punk, and hardcore scenes of the 90s. So take a listen and go check out Scott White art, Moving Digging Teeth on IG and Bandcamp. Enjoy. I think that's good. All right, cool. All right, we got it all worked out then.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, well, thanks for coming on to the Hardcore Record. Appreciate it.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so been a fan of most of your bands for many years.
Thanks.
Yeah, and especially your new band with Moving Digging Teeth. That's it's just an awesome project, but yeah, we'll get into that.
Thank you.
So I guess first thing I'd like to start out with is basically, when you were younger and you got into underground music, like, was there a band? What was it? Was there a moment that you knew like this was it? Like, either it was going to be metal, it was punk, or what that you found that just changed it for you?
I don't think it was any specific genre. Like, my dad is a musician, so when I was a kid, we were always going to see his band play. He was in like a cover band and did, bar band, that kind of stuff. And I always thought it was just the coolest, just watching it and just how much fun people were having while they were playing. But I think the earliest thing that clicked with me that was like punk was the Ramones. I didn't know necessarily what that was. We had just moved to Florida. We lived out in the sticks, and Rock and Roll High School was like on loop on TV. And I thought it was cool, but I wasn't really sure, why yet. And then once we moved, I grew up in a town called DeLand. It's like about 40 miles northeast of Orlando. Small town. It's like a university town. And when we moved there, I was in elementary school, but by about 7th grade, I'd started getting exposed to everything just from like Thrasher magazine and, it out in the country at that time, like there was a half pipe like every 2 miles. Like all our dads worked construction and shit. So, and because we all lived so far away from each other, there was a lot of, you'd spend a whole day here, a whole day there, whatever. And within that, started the older guys in town would start letting us borrow tapes, just listening to what they were playing at the half pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
I think by 7th grade it was a lot of the Exploited, like GBH, that kind of stuff. And then I guess 8th grade was Minor Threat, Misfits. That was like 1987, I guess.
Oh wow, yeah.
That was when it like really clicked. That was when I was like, shit, this is like, I fell in love with it, just like all of us. It was just scary and intriguing, and and then through that, of course, just looking in liner notes, seeing like what other bands were mentioned, and just trying to find anything we could, which was near impossible back then, especially living down here.
Yeah.
There was one record store in town, but he had a very, very small selection of punk and hardcore. But yeah, to answer your question, I guess it would be the Ramones. It's kind of the first band that like kind of perked my ears up and was like, oh, what's this all about?
Yep. Now, what metal band was it that for you, or like how did you turn to get into more of the metal grindcore screamo?
I think that's solely based on location. Just Tampa is an hour. Um, Orlando was full of like early death metal bands.
Yeah.
So I got into like punk and hardcore stuff before I got into metal. It wasn't probably until like 89 or 90 when I really started getting into like crossover thrash stuff, and of course Metallica and Slayer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the Decade of Aggression album was recorded in Central Florida, so that was kind of a big deal after that happened. But when the first wave of death metal hit, it was probably Obituary was the first of those bands outside of Metallica and Slayer, that seemed like an actual extreme metal band. But there was so much of it here; it was kind of unavoidable, and there wasn't where I lived. There wasn't any of that, but
Yeah.
just being in this
close enough.
proximity, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I when I was younger, I never really got too much into metal. I mean, I liked like Quiet Riot and shit like that when, early on, Twisted
Yeah.
Sister and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would probably say it was Obituary. That was the first like extreme band that I was like they were just slow and gross, and it just I don't know, it was awesome. Still hasn't been too many that have topped that for me.
Okay. Yeah. I gotcha. Um, did you know that you always, or did you ever plan to be in a band, or was it something that just kind of like happened?
Oh no, I wanted to be in a band like just because my dad,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
it it was just something that just seeing it and being around it. They used to practice in our house, and
Okay.
I knew I was going to be in a band. I started out as a drummer because my dad's a drummer. I never really pursued drums too far. I was okay. Um, but by the time we were in high school and we were like trying to start bands, I just got picked as the singer. Like
Okay.
I played bass and I dabbled in guitar, but they just picked me. So it was like you're the singer now, and it's been like that with every band except one. So
Okay.
I
Nice.
had no intention of singing in a band. That was just something that um, I guess I didn't have much choice. It was like if you want to be in a band, you're the singer. I was
Gotcha.
like, cool.
Um. All right. So you didn't plan to be a singer, but but now you find yourself, say, like writing lyrics, right? Since then, like, have you just written stuff, like written like a poetry, or just written stuff to get things out, or do you write just for the sole purpose of just doing a band?
I've always written. So like with Dragbody, most all of those lyrics were things that I had already had written, not necessarily for that specific song we were working on,
Mm-hmm.
but I always had like a black book with me that I would write stuff down in. I was really into writing as a kid, so I just always had pages of band names and pages of things that I thought would be good lyrics, and um, so that was kind of when we Dragbody was like the third band I was in, I guess. Um, now I don't write as much. I'm pretty much just writing for the songs at this point.
Okay.
Um, but that's also because I can't sit down and write. I have some issues with my hands, but we'll touch on
Okay.
that
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, they have talk to text now, but that's
Yeah,
like still hard. It's still,
yeah.
yeah, I get you.
It,
Yeah.
it's just more frustrating. Like it kind of it's been a weird few years, and it
Yeah.
kind of fucked with my brain a little bit. But now I'm back to writing. Since we started this band, it's been my phone is just full of stuff now. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what it's like. I write too. I write
Yeah.
poetry. I've written it all my life, and I still do. You know.
Yeah, you'll hear something and you'll find a meter in it, or at least
Yep.
I do, and I'll be like, man, that the bounce of this or the flow of this works, and I'll just write those words down, and then afterwards I'll sometimes find the ones that work together, like thematically, and I'll build off of that.
Yeah.
Rarely do I sit down, or rarely did I sit down with an intention in mind as far as what I was writing. I would kind of let the sentences kind of work themselves out until it clicked with me, and then I would kind of build off of that base into a topic. It was kind of backwards, but that's just how I did it.
No, that's how I do it.
Oh,
You know,
great.
as soon as the spring hits, I get
Yeah.
up early in the mornings on the weekends, and I'll sit on a rocking chair on my porch, and I sit out there for like a good hour or two before anyone wakes up, and so then I'll just kind of just type things on my phone, and it just kind of just whatever comes out comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. That's interesting. That's neat. Um, so you want to? I guess we're looking to start. I guess see how Dragbody started. Uh, was that 95?
So Dragbody started as a band called Contention of the Orders.
Okay.
Um, I was not in that band. I had moved back to. I'm from Cleveland originally,
Okay.
and I moved back to Cleveland um, the end of '94, I guess, right beginning of '94, and one of my best friends and some dudes a dude I went to high school with, they had started this band. My buddy Ope moved back from Savannah. He was going to SCAD because we're all art nerds. And they had started this band in DeLand with a couple guys at UCF because Mike had just started at UCF, and the guy he was rooming with also played guitar, was also just like just into hardcore. So since they lived together, they're like, let's just try to start a band. So um, those guys put that together, and then I guess it was the end of '95. Again, Ope called me and was like, "Hey, you're gonna sing in this band." He's the same one that did it the first time.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm moving back to Savannah. I told them you would do this, and I already knew Mike." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And at that point, I had just been offered a tattoo apprenticeship, so I was coming back anyhow.
Oh, okay.
So it just
Nice.
kind of lined up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got down, and they had a tape out, like I think like 5 or 6 songs, and they were playing for the better part of that year. Then when he moved, I jumped in, and we we started kind of changing a little bit. Like I was really more into like the faster metal stuff. Like Integrity was my favorite band. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
108, like all of that stuff that was just kind of chaos metalcore before it was like called anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Bloodlet, of course, was here. Like those were our friends. So I wanted to go in a just less of a straightforward direction. They were writing songs that were a little more like kind of snapcase style,
Yeah.
uh, like breakdown heavy stuff, and they all seemed to be like, yeah, let's just take these songs and see what the fuck happens with it. And now they all tell me that I was like the reason we started doing that. I thought it was pretty mutual, but
Well.
but yeah, I came back, and within a few months we had another set, and we jumped in the studio and recorded a couple new songs and an old song, and that was the first 7 inch. It happened really fast.
Yeah. It's you cut out there for a second, but the drenched and open 7 inch. Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Yeah. Yeah. So my story, just a little bit here. Before I could even drive, I had my sister's older friend would take me to shows in like Princeton, Central
Mhm.
Jersey, New Brunswick area, And I remember buying that 7-inch from because at the show, because not only back then it was all, bands had tables, but it was just record people had tables. Distro
Sure.
catalogs were at the stores or at the shows constantly. And I think I played that drenched and open 7-inch out like till now. It's like it crackles. I can't get rid of the crackle, and I'm all right with that. But I don't remember a lot from back then. I was so young, and he would just take me to see these bands, leave me, run off, do whatever he had to do, and I would just listen to so many of these awesome bands from back then. And so I may have seen Dragbody if you traveled up to New Jersey at some point.
Yeah, we played Jersey quite a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then like I got into the split with the Burial Ground, and then the 12-inch split with Crucible. That was the other one that like really solidified that like Dragbody was awesome. So that's what got me into you guys.
Oh, appreciate that. I try to listen to that stuff now. I think the songs are there, but we were never really able to nail down a recording that any of us could agree on, except for that first 7-inch. I think the Transgress Nullify 7-inch we recorded with Steve Heritage at Morristown, and when that one came out, I think that was kind of where we were like, "Oh shit, an awesome recording!" Like this sounds like our songs finally, because the first 7-inch I think sounded good. Like the recording on that was really good. That was a guy named Mark Ignolfo, he's still around here. He's done so much stuff. Great dude. But yeah, that was kind of seemed like an ongoing battle. It still is for me. Every time we record, I'm still like, I don't know if this even sounds like this band, but
Or what your intention is, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, back then, recording has come so far, right? So like back then, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, the recording, we're not so sure, but where was I going with this? So, like nowadays, I feel like there's more. I still like those raw recordings, and I know how the bands feel about them, and I understand that, but there's still like, it's that sound of that, recording still that,
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a listener, that's one of the things that we all love about like that era of hardcore, right? Like it sounds raw and it sounds like real. But as someone trying to like put the songs down, like
yeah,
it never felt like we were getting what we were trying to do, I guess. Like I don't know. I don't feel like any of those recordings really sound like what we sounded like live as far as tonally or anything, but that's all right.
yeah, gotcha. So I did have a question. You know, the split with Crucible got put out on No Idea Records, and No Idea kind of like went downhill. Did that have something to do with like bands weren't getting paid fully?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what that? Okay, they were just
Yeah.
getting repress after repress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you know, a lot of those bands blew up, and
Yeah.
that label was surviving off those early recordings. And early on, I think everybody was just stoked that No Idea had picked up so much speed, and they were able to create this. Like Gainesville was the fucking Athens of the '90s, basically. For like just indie music in general, and that was great until those bands started doing really significant shit,
Yeah.
and the numbers that No Idea was moving of that early stuff, he just never really made it. I haven't talked to Var about it, but I know they scrubbed that 12-inch split from the catalog. That was kind of like an experiment at the time, and it didn't work. So that doesn't even show up on the No Idea catalog.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Wow.
yeah. As far as I know, most of them got either pitched or just like the covers got reused for something else. Like, yeah, it didn't go well, I guess. But
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't talked to VAR in years, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm still up there a lot. I still talk to a lot of the people that were and are in those bands. So yes, the gist of it was um, they wanted some compensation for the amount of records that he had been selling over the last, you know, 3 decades, basically.
Yeah. But you're right. It was a huge. It was pivotal in the scene back then. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
some of my favorite bands that I still listen to today came from there.
Yeah,
And without it, we wouldn't. A lot of us wouldn't be here, or wouldn't even listen to half the
yeah,
stuff.
for sure. I mean,
So
for me, it was a big deal just because it it gave us a different option, a different type of punk. You know,
hmm
like that hadn't really been explored here yet. And once people started realizing, like, oh man, Gainesville is like the punk without the uniform or the hardcore without the uniform. They're just doing whatever the
yeah,
fuck they want and making it.
yeah,
And it was really intriguing and really inviting. Um, it was a weird scene, but it was really there's just so many different styles of music in that one little town.
yep,
And yeah, it was just I don't know. It was pretty incredible to be able to, drive an hour and I mean we were there constantly. Like at one I worked there for a
yeah,
while and I would drive back and forth and like um yeah, Gainesville was a magical place at the time.
yeah. It's. I never know what to say, but like you find like an area over the years, and like you have this like coalition of so many
Mhm.
bands out of one area, and it just absolutely amazes me. It's an understatement of my words that I'm trying to get out. And then you take that and like, yes, like, well, you just have this coalition of these 4 or 5 members of this amazing band too, and it's just so much of it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and it because you'll see from time to time, like I'll go out now, right, and like you don't see that cohesion from people.
Right.
you know like you got this band over here, okay, but like it's just, I feel like, well, hold on, sorry, give me a second. Sometimes you have that where like everybody's just supporting everybody,
Mhm.
and then but a lot of other times you don't, and when everybody supports everybody like that is pretty much when it works, and it's truly truly amazing, you know
Yeah,
but
Florida at that time was pretty fractured as far as like the scenes. Like Tampa was its own thing, Miami was its own thing, and bands like mingled, but there was always kind of weird shit.
okay,
And Gainesville was funny because you'd go there and you'd occasionally get this attitude like, "Oh, we're doing something you haven't even figured out yet," you know. And then
yeah,
you would figure out like, "Oh shit, they really are doing something we haven't figured out yet."
yeah,
And now it's a fucking genre of music, and it's like there's been a global takeover of like fest punk and shit, and it's like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can trace that lineage back to like 6 bands, and
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty wild. Like,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I still go down to the fest every few years. I try to get down to Gainesville to
yeah.
that
I went
festival.
last year. I don't go every year now, but um, I went this past year, the year before. Oddly, did you read that Gainesville punk history book? Did you ever see
No,
that?
no, I didn't see
No,
that.
it came out a couple years ago, but this guy Matt, he didn't live in Gainesville during the '90s. He's from Valdosta, but he did a Gainesville punk history book, and he actually was one of the people we started moving Digging Teeth with. He was our guitar player, and I didn't really know him, but I'd gone to see him do a seminar here at the Regional History Center about Gainesville punk.
Oh wow.
And when we all met up to start this band, I was like, "Oh shit, you're the you're the booking guy," you know? And it
Yeah.
was just wild.
Oh, that's
Um,
neat. Yeah.
yeah, it was it's worth reading. It's it's a loose interpretation of um, what was happening.
Yeah.
But,
That's
yeah,
cool. I'll check that out. Definitely. Yeah. Um, and then I have a question here. I think I sent you a message like a long time ago, maybe a year or so ago or more on the Dragbody account. So on the Flip the Kill Switch
hmm
release, there's like this like acoustic version of a Baton Rouge.
yeah.
Yes,
I
but
recall
that
this email now. Yeah,
yeah yeah, and
and
s I was just sitting there listening to the album, reading the lyrics online, and then I realized that I know that song,
right.
and so I was just wondering if you could just take us to the story about that song real quick.
Yeah, it's a song by Adventures in Immortality, who were a band from Orlando for many years. They were kind of the band here that um, kind of made it through the 90s, right? And at that time, they started as like a punk band and um, punk alternative band, I guess. But by the mid 90s, they had kind of leaned into more like ebullition style stuff.
Hmm.
And my one of my best friends, Phil, he had started playing bass for Adventures, which was a huge deal for us because we all hung out, and it was like,
Yeah.
uh, they were the band, and um, I guess it was 93, 94. They wrote that song. Um, a friend of ours, Heather, she had passed away from cancer, and at that same time, one of Phil and I's close friends from high school, he had passed away in a car accident, and it was like kind of a double whammy. And Mike had written that song about Heather, but because of the timing, it kind of hit me pretty good just because of Dave dying, and
Yeah.
it was just a song that we all of us loved. Like that 7 inch in general. I think the Adventures in Mortality Monolith 7 inch is like kind of peak Orlando. Um, and yeah, Phil, he came up and he actually read the lyrics. He's the one that does the vocals on that track.
Okay.
We just wanted to do something that was a little more somber, I
Yeah.
guess, than the adventure song. It was
Hmm.
kind of still like a high impact kind of hardcore song. Um, yeah, so that's it. It was just something that had been around for years that all of us liked, and everybody that was in Dragbody was we were friends with the Adventures guys, and that again that 7 inch. I also did the layout for that 7 inch. Um,
Oh, no way.
Kind of the guy in town that did most of the T-shirts and 7 inch stuff, and um, yeah, it
That's
was just something that made sense when one of the guys was like, "Oh, well, let's do this. Let's do like a you know,
yeah.
we, it's something we had talked about and we hadn't really fucked with it, and then we had this song written, and the music to that was kind of more depressing than the other stuff on the Dragbody album.
Yep.
So I don't know, it just kind of worked out. Um, yeah, it was
Gotcha.
personal, one of those
Yeah.
songs. Um,
That's yeah, it's interesting to me. And sorry for your losses, honestly.
yeah,
I offshoot to that really that 7 inch is probably one of my holy grail records. Always has
yeah.
been.
Monolith 7 inch.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I've
fantastic.
had it for years. I got to meet them, some of them guys in Gray Before My Eyes, before
Mhm.
I had a license at a house show in Lacey Township, New Jersey. That's where I grew up, and but yeah, and they were screen printing like right before my eyes shirts, and they
Yeah.
were telling me all about how it happens and everything. But for some reason, they did do that song live that night at
Hmm.
that house show.
Yeah, they played that song constantly. Like that, they never stopped playing. Like they were one of the busiest bands. It kind of it was kind of crazy because I think back to how much they played. It
Hmm.
was like I just thought that was normal. That they were just constantly playing, and like it seemed like 2 or 3 times a month they would play a local show, and like they that was also when shows had really mixed bills.
Yeah.
So it was like so always somebody new, I guess. But yeah, that 7 inch is it's a great record.
Yeah. So, when did Dragbody end?
Um, I want to say 2002 ish. We never really had the conversation. Like we toured Europe for a couple months on the Killswitch album, and that was about 6 or 7 months straight of tour between the U.S. and Europe.
Yeah.
And a couple of those guys were in college, so they were taking time off to tour and kind of pursue that. And when we got back, we had a couple shows booked. We were supposed to go back overseas, like do some festival stuff, um, and just kind of that was it. Like
Just
we played a few shows. I think we all kind of knew that it was time because a few of them moved.
hmm
Like David bounced around, and Mike was in school full time. Two of those guys are doctors now. Like
Oh wow.
um, they hold PhDs, so it was like
Yeah.
probably the best plan to dip out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was never the like, let's break up. Um, we just, I think we were just around each other too much and just on the road too long.
Yeah. It happens. Yeah.
And once you're racking shit on credit cards and um, just the stress of doing that stuff, you want to get out of the van for a while. And we had just put that record out, the Killswitch album, and we were hitting it pretty hard because of that. And it got it because of the European release. And yeah, I mean, we got back and it was kind of like everybody went home.
Gotcha.
It was a minute before we played again. I think we played with like DRI and maybe a couple other shows, Bloodlet show, and I think we all knew that was kind of like, let's fucking step back. And for me, I was having to take time off of work, like tattooing, which
Hmm.
it was kind of neck and neck with for priority. And tattooing was just gaining more momentum. It was like all I thought about. It's all I wanted to do, and
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I wanted to do part time. So every time we'd go somewhere, I'm like trying to find the closest tattoo studio, and just that kind of shit. I think I think it just hit that spot. And what's funny about it is, within about a year after that, Mike Rosen, our guitar player, started Railsplitter, and we had been talking about starting more of a sludge band,
Hmm.
and the last handful of Dragbody songs that we never recorded were really sludgy, like
Okay.
that, just really noisy and really sludgy. And he and I were both always into that kind of shit. Like, I Fudge Tunnel and I Hate God and all that kind of stuff was like pretty big for he and I specifically. And yeah, then we just kind of never went back to Dragbody for 10 or 12 years or whatever it was before we played the reunion thing.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Um, so how long did Railsplitter last?
Man, that was probably 5 years, maybe. I don't even know,
Yeah.
honestly, because the band I'm in now, the Moving Digging Teeth, is the same band, just without Mike. It's
Oh, okay.
the three of us. Mike lives in Baltimore, um, but yeah, maybe 4 years, 5 years. I don't know. It wasn't one of those situations where we were like really trying to play a bunch of shows and do a whole bunch of shit. Like I think we were more into just hanging out and writing some different stuff at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah. Um, so is there a good amount of time between your last band and what you're doing now with Moving Digging Teeth? Did you have like a
Yeah, the last band I did was called Six Dead Horses. Um, that was like probably 2008 to 2011. We put out one record, and like 2011, I opened the shop, and
okay?
I started having hand issues at that time. They were telling me it was carpal tunnel.
Oh,
So,
okay.
all right, I'm either going to tattoo or I played guitar and sang in that band.
Okay.
So I went to swapped to bass. So we had two bass players, two guitar players, and we were doing some pretty cool shit. But my hands just couldn't take it. So it was, my daughter was like a year old. So it was just more of a priority issue, like we'd play a show, I'd have to reschedule 2 or 3 days worth of appointments after that because I couldn't tattoo. So,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I never honestly had any intention on being in another band. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I never stopped going to shows. I have a distro still. Like, I sell records and I still love it. I just never figured I would have any desire to do that again until Dan brought it up. Like Dan, we toured with Dan. He was in a bunch of bands in the '90s, and he was really into like youth crew shit, and he was also into power violence stuff. So
Uh-huh.
that was stuff we clicked on, and for years we had talked about wanting to do like, let's do a youth crew band that is presented like a power violence band. Like, let's just
Uh-huh.
rewrite some like instead riffs and shit like that. But, drop tune it and play fast. And
Yeah.
he had written a bunch of songs. He plays drums in Moving Digging Teeth, and he pretty much writes all of the music. It's just kind of his project. And he was like, "Oh, let's do this," and any reason to fucking hang out, I'm like, "Yeah," like, let's just meet up and hang out. So we were meeting up every couple months and just writing stuff. And yeah, I had no intention of doing that, but because it was them, I was like, I missed those dudes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm about to turn 52. It's like my daughter's a junior in high school. I have plenty of time to do shit now.
Yeah. I know what
My
you mean.
wife had actually been on me for a couple of years to start. Like, you need to do some of that shit again. And yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. It's fun. But
Yeah. It doesn't leave, you know. You just when we were younger, I guess way back then, it was like always like, oh yeah, we're gonna grow up and stuff. But then now we're all older, and it's like it doesn't leave. I stopped even
yeah, for
listening to a
sure.
lot of this music for years, and I was like, what am I doing? But yeah.
Yeah, I stopped going to like hardcore shows
Hmm.
like around 2002, 2003.
Same here. Yep.
That we're mostly just going to other stuff. Like, I would still keep up. Like, there's always
Hmm.
bands that I like in the genre, but I just got really sick of that just the whole fucking everything within hardcore just was like not what I was wanting to do. And honestly, when we were playing a lot of like sludge and stoner metal shows, that was like the coolest bunch of people I've ever met. Like
Yeah.
judgment free scene, like
Yep.
literally just like the nicest, chill people. And it was kind of eye opening. Like, you play these massive shows with that style of band. There's like never a fight, there's never aggression. No. It's just people banging their heads, and like it seemed more like what I had gotten into punk for than what like punk and hardcore kind of turned into, but there was a band here called Republic Corpse, and they were kind of the band that pulled me back into going to shows. They were more of like a kind of a crust hardcore band, and grindy stuff. But that was when I was like, "Fuck, I got to start doing this again. Feels right." So
yeah. I completely understand exactly what you're talking about. I went through all the same stuff, same reasons of, getting out of it, not even wanting to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be the common story, right?
Yeah, it is, like, pretty much.
Especially seeing the change that happened in the hardcore scene in the late 90s, early 2000s. It got weird to me. It got weird, and
yeah,
it just wasn't. It wasn't what I fell in love with, I guess. So.
No. A friend of mine and I were in Philly one time, and they pointed a finger at him, 10 guys, and he grabbed me on the way out, and we ran out of the club, ran to the car, hit the bridge, and went back to Jersey. It was like what is happening? This is just, it was crazy, But yeah.
It's funny, Philly. I always used to hear all that shit about Philly, and we never really played hardcore shows in Philly because we kind of walked that line to where we would play with a lot of grind bands, and we always played Stalag in Philly, which was more like that was the spot for us. Like we played there a bunch of times with a bunch of different bands, and it was always awesome. And then I'd hear, like I went to the church a couple times, but that was such a different kind of mindset.
Yeah.
It was very, very hardcore. Obviously, it's still going strong,
Yeah. It's wild.
Which I also found interesting because I remember when that shit started, that was that like Polycia 3 dudes and a bunch of not like hardcore guys. And it just kind of turned.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
Stalag was the spot though. That's
fun. Where I first started going to shows when I went to Philly.
Yeah. 5
of us would hop in this Lincoln and we would go, and there was just from punk bands to anything to oi bands to screamo bands.
Yeah.
Like just there was one show where we're just passing around a 40 and everybody's drinking out of the same 40, and it was just like it's never happened again.
Yeah, that was definitely the spot that had the crust punk wine jug.
Yes.
With all this whatever shit they had in it out front, and it would just bounce around.
Yeah.
But I love that place though. Had the sketchiest staircase I'd ever seen in my life. Like
yeah.
But always had good shows there.
There's not many people that I talk to nowadays that even know that place ever existed or know about that place. But
we played there with some crazy bands too. Like I know we played there with that. I think Assuck. I know we played there with Lamb of God before they were Lamb of God. That place was always packed. Like
yeah,
I don't know.
Everything came through there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was more the vibe that I think all of us liked. Hardcore kids didn't really give a shit about us for the most part.
Yeah.
We didn't have we were too chaotic. Like we didn't have breakdowns, so they'd get mad.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah. So let's see where we're going. Moving Digging Teeth. I just want to say that it's awesome.
Thank you.
I've been passing it along to some friends. They absolutely love it. You know, I'm like, listen to this. So yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it.
Do you plan on doing anything more with the band, or just kind of like keeping it chill, keeping it local, or you think you
Well,
do
we all
something
live in
further?
we all live in different places. Like Dan, our drummer, lives in Atlanta, and Phil, our guitar player, lives in Tampa,
Hmm.
and Scotto and I live in Orlando. So it's uh it's not very convenient to do stuff. So we've only played one show. In December, we played with Commitment from Philly, who fucking rip, and Stress Positions from Chicago. And those bands are like made up of people from Orlando. So
Okay.
it seemed like a really good first show for us. It was in our little shithole bar here, like
Yeah.
RCBG's,
Yeah.
and it was an amazing first show. It was a great show in general. It's like a class reunion kind of a thing, and um, we're playing again May 9th with Dead Guy, and we'll see how weird that is as far as like
Yeah.
if it makes them want to play more shows. Like I didn't really have any intention of playing any shows like that, like on a stage or anything.
I
Um,
got you.
but now we have a bunch of songs, and it's like fuck it. So
Don't
yeah,
yeah. Don't stop. Have fun.
yeah. When you messaged me the other day, we were recording that weekend. We did 6 more songs, um, going back to do vocals. I think the end of April.
Oh, okay.
So the cassette of the 4 songs will be out probably in a couple weeks. Um, a buddy of mine here, he sings in a bunch of death metal bands and grind bands. He has a
Hmm.
label called Morbid Subculture, and we've been friends for like 20 years. We don't exactly fit the roster of his label because it's a lot of death metal. I mean, it's Florida,
Hmm.
and he's a
Yeah.
death metal guy, but I'm always far more interested in doing stuff with my friends than
Yeah.
So when he was like, "Oh, let me put it out," so we were like, "Yeah, let's do that." So I should be out.
Um. Yeah. Yeah. I did. I pre-ordered it. Made sure I did.
Oh, cool,
But
thanks.
yeah. But I since tapes started being put back out, it'll only be the second tape I bought, and it'll be a metal tape. But I had to go buy a whole new setup so I could play tapes. Um,
Funny.
do you find it odd that the tapes came back, or is it
Yes,
more of just a cost related thing?
I think it's odd. Mike does limited cassette releases specifically. He does.
Okay.
He's done some vinyl and CDs, but it's mostly like 50 or 100 cassettes, and then he whatever next format. Um, I don't personally like cassettes. They're super temporary. You know,
Yeah, same.
they don't age well. But people are saying do a cassette, and I still buy cassettes. I have a shit ton right here.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, whatever. I mean, probably gonna do some CDs as well before we decide if we're gonna put everything on one record or if we're gonna do a 7 inch and a split. Like we're bouncing some ideas around because I'm a vinyl nerd. Like
Yeah, yeah,
um, so it's definitely got to be on vinyl. But otherwise, like CDs and shit are so cheap to make that it's like if people will buy them and it'll pay for itself, then I
yeah.
I don't care. Like let's just get it out.
Gotcha. Um, Perfect. So you're a vinyl nerd, which I can see behind you.
Yep.
Um, what's like one or two of your favorite pieces of vinyl you own?
Favorites. Man, that's a
Or
tough
what?
question.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of maybe threw that at you.
Um,
Or
One of my favorite records that no one seems to care about that I hold dear to my heart is the Merrill LP. And you can find that for about $3 occasionally.
Yeah.
I listen to that a lot. But I think like important stuff, there's records. I have a Faith Void split that I got in probably ninth grade, and it disappeared. A girlfriend ended up with it, moved, blah blah. It ended up making its way back to me,
Oh, wow.
and I think that one just for the life it's lived. But I still have most of the first records I ever bought. Like I
Yeah.
still have Black Sabbath 45 I bought in like seventh grade. Those are important just for. I feel like they're part of my family. Like I would
Yeah.
cry if something happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's such a tough question because I think things that I listen to often are not necessarily the most important things I have in
Yeah.
there. I do love that Merrill record though. I tell people that and they either have no clue what that is or they're like, it was all right. But for me, it just kind of hit at the right time.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know.
I don't know who they are, but I'll definitely check it out. But you said it was like, you can find it for like $3. I recently went through my record collection and I started looking everything up and I'm like, how is this only $2? I'm like, I bought it for 4,
Yeah,
and it's just wild how some of that stuff just gets lost. And like, well, Discogs is based off, I guess, like of a buzz. If it's selling, it's
sure,
selling.
sure.
People will pay for it. But if it's not selling, then it's not worth anything.
I
So
think, did you ever listen to Downcast? So Downcast was like one of
yes.
the first Evolution releases. That LP
Hmm.
is probably one of those for me as far as like importance, and I listen to it often.
Hmm.
But that's one that you can find on there for nothing, and it's crazy because it comes with this like massive booklet, and it kind of set the tone for a lot of the Evolution stuff.
Yeah.
And I I think because I find it so important, like um, I love pretty much everything Ebullition put out.
Hmm.
It was just so weird and just different from what was happening, and just the amount of information that came with those records and just stuff like
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'll see that for like $8 and just be like, this is crazy. This is like people don't understand how it's kind of a launching point,
Hmm.
like because if they're not familiar with the band um, or the label, I guess. But yeah, anyhow.
Yeah, that's part of why I wanted to start this whole podcast thing was just to continue to talk about all this stuff. The older we
Yeah,
get, so it doesn't get lost. But um, you mentioned earlier, you said you have a distro thing you do.
I do. Yeah,
What is that called?
it's not called anything. I don't sell online. I don't. I
Oh,
just
okay.
set up and I got about 6 or 8 boxes of LPs,
Oh, okay.
and at the moment here, so I did a distro years ago. I stopped, and a few years ago, I just noticed there was nowhere to find a lot of the stuff that I like. Like I like a lot of crusty hardcore. I like a lot of stuff that maybe isn't probably the most popular hardcore stuff.
Yep.
Um, but even the classics, like we have a couple really great record stores here, but they don't necessarily have the things that I thought was important.
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, I'm going to start doing this again. So I just started collecting again just for resale because I love talking about music and being able to get a record for somebody that they don't know what it is. They're buying it on a recommendation or based on the cover,
Hmm.
and then the next time you see them, like it's either fucking like, oh my god, this is incredible, or it's like, and I'll just trade him back for something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
being that. I like doing that. I like the having younger kids be like, oh, what is this? You
Yeah.
so I have a lot of like Discharge and Doom and a lot of that stuff because I like all that stuff. But I also have kind of the standards in there,
Yeah.
a little bit of everything.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're tattooing.
Yep.
We'll get back to that. So you started tattooing. You tattooed for many years now.
Yep.
Did you always want to start a shop?
I always knew I was going to because back then that was kind of how tattooing worked. Like
Mm-hmm.
you typically there's a lineage involved and there was a turnover from like owner to apprentice at some point. Now that shit doesn't exist. It's something entirely different now. But I figured I would have to, just as I got older, I would have to open a shop. And there also weren't a ton of tattooers in the mid '90s. Like
No. Yeah.
um, so yeah, I mean, I figured it would happen, and it. This is actually the second shop I've opened.
Okay.
The shop I apprenticed at, I ended up owning and closing that shop because we were gone all the time, and I didn't really want to own a business. I didn't want to have anything. Like I just
Yeah.
wanted to be a vagabond, and I didn't want to own that shop. There was just a bunch of crazy shit that happened with legal stuff and things I could talk about, but we'd be in it
No.
for hours. Sketchy '90s tattoo shit.
Yeah.
I just wasn't owning a shop at that point. Wasn't on my radar because I'd only been in a couple years, and that's not how you did it. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I knew at some point I would. I'd like tattoos. I mean, as long it when I got into hardcore and stuff, like you'd see the fucking inserts and everybody was tattooed, and
Yeah. Yeah.
my grandpa had a cool tattoo on his arm, and that was always fascinating when I was a
Yeah.
kid. So, when I was about 14 or 15 is when I started really like being like super into the idea of what tattooing was, and my mom would buy me tattoo magazines and stuff because back then you couldn't get them at like you had to go to like a porn shop or something to get a tattoo magazine back then. My sweet mother would occasionally buy me stuff at the adult store. She'd go in and buy me a magazine. Um, but yeah, I just hit 30 years in February, which was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 years of anything seems crazy, but it's gone by so fast. Like, even though I can't sit down and tattoo now, it's still pretty much all I think about. Like, I'm still around it every day.
Is that because of your hands still?
Yeah, I have. So when I started having hand issues, standard is carpal tunnel or whatever, and over the years it turned into a few different things. And in 2023, I was finally diagnosed with a neurological condition called dystonia,
Okay.
and I at that point they're like, you have to stop. Like, you're just making this worse. But it also hurts. Like, if I try to tattoo, I've lost a good amount of dexterity in my hands because it causes muscle seizures.
Oh wow.
So if I try to tattoo or even draw, um, I'll snap a pencil. Like, just my brain doesn't register necessarily what my appendages are doing. So aside from it being a bad idea to try to tattoo, it just hurts and it feels like a foot cramp kind of like,
Oh
but
wow.
from about here to my hand. So
Oh
my whole right
geez.
arm up into my neck. My voice is kind of shaky.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what that is. It
Okay.
just affects the muscles you predominantly use. So my whole tattoo career, I was just fucking bananas. Like I all I wanted to do was like 8 or 10 tattoos a day. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I inherited this. It's my dad has some neurological issues in his family, but because of tattooing, it brought it on way faster. Like it probably wouldn't have hit me until my mid to late 50s or 60ish,
Oh,
but
gotcha.
because I was overusing my hands, um, it just escalated it really fast. So, and with that came a whole bunch of other weird, just mental shit like depression and all that.
I know exactly how that goes. I get back pain, and they've been fighting at it. I get shots every 5 months,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to sit down and not be in any pain. And now they're starting to look at like the neck up here, and seeing what's going on and why this tightens up. And I get pain all the way down to my toe. Yeah, I understand that. It's not easy to deal with mentally. It
No,
really is
and
not.
aside from being like sad that I couldn't work or draw or any of the things I've been doing since I was 5,
Hmm.
my life revolves around using my hands. Even
Yeah.
outside of tattooing, painting, I do. I'm an art curator. I do a number of other things that I haven't been able to do because I've lost dexterity. So I was also really mad. It was just a tug of war of going between just being completely depressed or just absolutely pissed. And I'm in a good spot with it now, but it's taken a long time. Like, because I own a tattoo shop, so going
Yeah.
in and being around it
Yeah.
was just making matters worse for a few years. And luckily, I have a business partner there, and he kind of understood what was happening, and the crew seemed to get it. They knew I wasn't just being a bum,
Hmm.
and they were seeing the effects of it because since it's neurological, they were just putting me on med trials and shit. And it was like, try this, try this, try this. So there's like a
Yeah.
year or two there that I don't even recall much of, and other than
Yeah.
what they tell me, like I'd come in all cooped out. Um, but yeah, it's been weird. It's been like 2.5 years, I guess, since I did a tattoo. So it's it is what it is.
Yeah. No. I know. I I understand dealing with pain. But you got to keep moving, and you got a
Yeah,
good support network. You'll get through. You also got other things. The band. There's so much. It, there is a lot more, even though you do have loss. But it's like you just the way I do. I just keep moving through and finding something new to kind of help keep me occupied and interested in.
yeah. I think because so much of what I've done and who I am, who I see myself as, has been tied up in being a tattoo artist and doing tattoos. I've kind of felt like I lost most of my purpose there. Like I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing,
Hmm.
and I never signed up to open a business to make money off of a bunch of people. Like that wasn't, and it still isn't like why I opened a tattoo shop. Like I figured I would be in the tattooing somebody and fucking die of a heart attack, and they'd have a great story, and then that would be it.
Yeah,
Um,
I got you.
so this was like, and the fact that I was in my mid 40s when it started happening was, it was pretty crazy, but it also allowed me a lot of opportunities outside of tattooing in the arts community in Central Florida, which is a huge part of my life now. I would have never stopped tattooing long enough to pursue any of these things. Like, um,
Yeah.
I just liked it. I loved it, and I always wanted to do, like, I always made non-tattoo art,
Mm-hmm.
but not being able to tattoo and trying to figure out ways of dealing with that depression, I was making a lot of art, and it turned into a pretty awesome couple of years where I had a lot of opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to have a couple solo shows, and now that kind of drives half of my life outside of the tattoo studio. I have an art space here that I curate. I just took a position with a arts nonprofit, a mentorship program, and it's I there's there's purpose in all of it. Like, I'm not gonna say happened for a reason because that would be dumb,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm at least able to find something now that is fulfilling to some degree. It's I still have dreams about tattooing constantly. Like, when I
Yeah.
stopped skating, when I was tattooing, I would have dreams about skating, like
Mm-hmm.
bombing a hill or whatever. And now I have dreams about tattooing constantly. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But,
I know what you mean. I Kid started skating one day, and I got on the board to show him something, and it slipped out from underneath me, and I fell flat on my ass. I was like, they're like, I go, let's go inside. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, get in the house. And never again, never again,
I
never
got
again.
hurt. I got hurt pretty bad, and my boss at the time was like, "What are you doing, dude? You're like 30, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and if you break your arm, you're kind of fucked."
yeah.
So I was like, "This is a good point," because even at that time, I had stopped skating a lot, like right out of high school, because I was doing other stuff, but I
Hmm.
never stopped skating entirely until then. Um, but even that, I still live with the like dumb shit that happened to me that day. So it's
Yeah,
like, better off.
yeah.
I got
So
bills,
yeah, we all got to figure out how to pay him.
responsibilities.
Yeah. Well, this has been really enjoyable, honestly. Um, a lot of fun to go over some, especially with like talking about the stalag and all that good stuff. Um, you got anything else you like to add?
No, no, I've had a fun. I had fun, man. I like talking.
Yeah,
This is
cool,
this is it's cool.
definitely. We
I
do.
will also send you some shit for the new band. So make sure I get your info when we're done
Cool.
with this.
All right, cool.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.